Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the AmandaFest podcast, where our mission is simple. It is to empower and inspire you to take aligned action in creating your own dream life, whatever that looks like for you. Every episode, we bring on guests who are doing the work, following their curiosities, and showing us what's possible as we step into our full power. Today, I'm so excited to introduce to you Aid, the owner of Vibe with Aid and Find Your Vibe Coaching. She's based out of Austin, Texas. If you've been a part of the rave scene or festival culture, you've probably come across her content. For nearly a decade, she has been a guiding light in the community, offering festival tips, personal development insights, and helping people glow up on and off the dance floor. Aid is not only a life coach, but she's also a festival workshop host, guiding ravers towards creating a life that feels as exhilarating and intentional as a festival. Today, we are diving into everything from mindset, personal development, to how she's built a thriving community online, all while balancing a 9 to 5. Before we begin, as we've done with every episode, I just want to take a quick moment for us all to breathe, get present, get in our bodies. I know I need it every single time. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if it's safe to do so, I invite you to shut down your eyes and just tune in to your breath. Notice your breath. Don't try to change it or do anything. Just notice it. And now with every inhale, I want you to think of something that you're calling in, something you want more of, something you want to feel full of. Setting your intention for this next 45 minutes to an hour. With every exhale, I want you to think of something that you want to let go of, any stress in your body, in your mind. Something that no longer serves you, you just want to let it go. Let it go with that exhale. So we're going to just focus on our breath. Nice deep breath in. And exhale out. And nice deep breath in. And exhale out. And on this last exhale, I want you to feel free to make some noise, shake it out, let go of anything else remaining. So a nice deep breath in and out. Woo! Welcome to your bodies. Welcome to AmandaFest, and welcome Aid. We're so happy to have you. Thanks for coming.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, I'd love to dive in and hear a little bit about your story. How did you get involved in the rave community, personal development? When did your businesses start? Let's just start from the very, very beginning.
Yeah. Okay. Buckle up. So
We're ready.
I've always been into electronic music since high school, middle school. I mean, that Every Time We Touch Cascada, song was probably what drew me in. But then it wasn't until I would say in high school, I would hear remixes of popular songs like Calvin Harris or Swedish House Mafia that really drew me into electronic music and got me super just curious about it all. And so then it wasn't until college that I went to my first rave. I had a couple of sorority sisters that were going to raves, and I just decided to go with them. This was Mad Decent Block Party 2015 back in Arizona, where I'm originally from. I talk about that story with my brand a lot because that actually was a shit show of a first rave. I ended up taking care of my little in my sorority the whole time because she just had a little too much fun, And so I ended up taking care of her. So I got a little taste of what the rave scene was like. And then a couple months went by as we were going throughout the semester. And then I heard about this New Year's Eve rave called Decadence, Arizona. That was a 2-day event in Arizona. That was New Year's Eve. It had Odessa on the lineup, Jack U, Chami, Pretty Lights, but of course, like I had no idea who these people were, kind of coming
So
into
funny.
it.
Yeah.
And so that rave I went to, and that's like kind of like the turning point, because I actually got to like fully be immersed into it and the community and the music and the outfits and all of that. And so that's what really sparked it. And then, what you hear from everyone else, you go to that one event and then you just want to go to more and more. So I really immersed myself into the Arizona rave scene. At that point, I was going to school at Arizona State and then would go to these raves with my friends and just really enjoyed it. And that's what I did throughout 2016. And then I went to my first big festival, which was Beyond Wonderland in San Bernardino at the Nas Event Center. That was my first big festival like that. And then later that year, I would go to Coachella, I would go to EDC, I would go to Austin City Limits, all these really big festivals. And so when I moved to Austin, I had just graduated from college, and I was, the type in college and high school where I just was always involved in something. So
Yeah.
graduating and going into an adult career and life, it's like, is this really it? I can't just have the 9 to 5. Like I need to have something else going. And I was like, you know what? I've really been thinking about how there's other people like me who go to these festivals, who go to these raves and have no idea what to wear or what the vibe is going to be like or what sets to check out. And so that's what started Vibe with Aid, where I started a music festival blog. It was on a little Wix site. And I just started putting, tips for your Coachella, tips for your EDC, tips for your Austin City Limits. So I started that. It'll be 7 years actually next
So
week, I
crazy.
think. Yeah, next week it's going to be 7 years, which is so crazy. And so that's what kind of kicked off all of that. This time in 2017 was a very pivotal time, I feel like, for me, because that's when I moved to Austin. That's when I started the blog. And I also feel like that's too when I started personal development, because you kind of like get out into the real world. I only knew a cousin when I moved here in Austin. Like I was away from my parents. I'm an only child. Like I was just figuring things out. And so I feel like that's when I started diving into personal development a little bit, because it was like, oh, I want to be able to go to the gym and work out. Like, how do I have a morning routine? How do I have a nighttime routine? All of those things. So yeah, that's kind of what got me to that point in starting it all. I'll stop there at least.
No, I love it. Okay, we're going to dive in. First of all, my first festival I ever went to was in 2017 as well.
Okay.
So our timelines are pretty similar. No, but I love all of this. I felt very similarly as well when I graduated school. I keep thinking about this. When we're in school, and I don't know if you were an activities girl,
Yep.
but it sounds like you might have been, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
it's like, all throughout school, it's like I was in the drama club and I had dance classes and I had this and I had that and I had all of these things that almost were my identifiers.
Yep.
And then when I graduated and I started my grown-up job, I stopped doing things outside of work.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about, if I met me at a bar, I would be bored hearing
Yeah.
about what I do, because all I do is go to work, drinks. That was kind of it. So I think so many people in that stage of life are just feeling really lost and trying to figure out how to have fun. Like that's really what it
Mm-hmm.
comes down to. And I think it's so cool that you found the festival scene simultaneously
Yeah.
with this desire for personal development. I was really drawn to your page because I feel like I do really similar work just within my own life and with no fun and all the
Mm-hmm.
things that I'm doing now. But I don't think a lot of people are talking about combining the partying with intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about how, when those things started to merge for you and what that looked like.
Yeah, totally. I resonate a lot with what you were saying, that when we graduate, enter the adult life of things, I feel like the word that just comes up is serious, right? We have to get serious. And it's like, I just refuse to get serious
Yeah,
because
I want to play.
when I go into places of seeing like, adults, and maybe I'm waiting in a doctor's office or I'm at the grocery store and people just look so unhappy and
Yep.
serious, and it's like I refuse, and it's like, how did they get there, right? And it's like I just refuse to get to that. But to answer your question, I feel that raving and personal development really started merging for me probably after the pandemic, I would say. But the pandemic was when my personal development obviously spiked, because we were inside, we were just taking care of ourselves. There was nothing else to do really. And so I feel like as I was coming back to these festivals and events again, it's like, okay, how do I allow myself to feel fulfilled by these events, but also feel fulfilled by what was going on in my life as well? And feeling excited about those things. And so I feel like as I was coming back to those raves and festivals, that's what really sparked it. As the world was opening back up, or events were coming back, it's like, okay, how can I have these events with more intention and be able to have a more impactful and profound experience? I feel like that was really when the shift started to happen, was after the pandemic.
Yeah, I love that. I'd also love to hear a little bit about your, I know that your social media game is like on freaking point. It looks like you have an incredible community. You've been able to figure out how to curate and cultivate that community while going to your festivals, building your social media community, also doing a 9 to 5, also taking care of yourself. How are you able to do that? What does your daily routines look like? I think that there's such an all or nothing mentality right
Totally.
now where you're either in that boring, mundane, I have a 9 to 5 and my life is just,
Mm-hmm.
cookie cutter this, or there's the people online that are like, quit your job, like run away, do all this. And I really gravitated towards you and what you represent because it's very similar to what I'm doing. It's this really grounded balancing act between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that was extremely intentional, but I'm curious to hear how you've been able to cultivate that, and I guess like where your priorities have to lie in order to make that happen.
Yeah. Well, I think this comes from, there's a couple of things coming to mind for me as I reflect on it all, because there's a lot of experimentation to get here. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't come out the gate starting social media and just had this amazing balance with things. And I think that's what's important, is that when you're aligned with the mission or the vision that you have and you recognize that it's a long game that you're playing. I knew that this was something that I wanted to do for a very long time, right? Whether it was coaching or content creation or whatever it may be, like I just knew that this isn't something that I was going to do for quick fame or quick money or anything like that. And I think that helped take the load off a little bit. But I would say when I was first starting out in social media and all of that, I was definitely operating more ego and anxiety based there, of just like, I got to get a post up, I got to get a post up, got to get a post up every single day. And I just made it happen. I would wake up, I would go to the gym at 5 a.m. and then I would go home, get ready for work, go to the office. Then I would get off, go home, edit a YouTube video, post an Instagram, have dinner, go to bed. And then, like, literally, that was repeating over and over.
This sounds like my life right now.
Yeah, currently your life right now. Exactly. I respect the hustle that Aid had, but I look back thinking like we definitely burned ourselves out. And also we're just like operating from that masculine ego kind of energy, right? And I did that up until 2021 when I launched the coaching business and I quit my 9 to 5. So, I am someone that, kind of like you said, you listen to the
Yeah.
people that are like, quit your 9 to 5. And I was like, yeah, I want to quit my 9 to 5. And it was all divine. It all happened so quick where it was just like, I got this sign where it was like, yeah, like, let's just do it. Let's quit the 9 to 5. Let's figure it out. Worst case is I go back to a 9 to 5, like
Right, right,
that's the worst
right.
case. And so it's funny, when I was working for myself, doing the coaching business, I was doing freelancing, I was doing content creation, coaching, like I was doing all these things and I was working more than what I was doing before,
Yeah, yeah,
and burning
yeah.
myself out then. And so I actually was telling Amanda this tomorrow, from the point that we're filming this, is my 1 year at my 9 to 5. And coming back to a 9 to 5 in this past year, it's funny because I'm still working outside of working hours, right? But I've experienced much more growth working
Yeah.
less in that respect, attracting people like Amanda and other people into my life that I've been able to connect with, but also having videos go viral that I wasn't anticipating and having spike in followers and things like that. And I'm working less on both of my brands than when I was just working on Vibe with Aid back in 2017 to like 2019, which is just crazy, right? So I think it's really just about finding what works best for you, but you have to have that balance of the masculine and the feminine energies there. The masculine being like, okay, we're going to have our Google Calendar, we're going to time block out our time. But then the feminine also being like, what can we actually manage? What are the priorities? And I think for me, I do a really good job at figuring out what are my priorities and just kind of sticking to that, whether it be like, when I got back from like, I had a full kind of bender of traveling earlier this year. And when I got back from that, I was like, okay, my health is a priority. And then, planting some seeds in my businesses is a priority. And then I really want to just be involved in Austin more. So those are my three priorities. Anything else, not a priority, basically, So it's like anytime I come back from a festival or a trip, I kind of just realign with what those priorities are. And then that just allows me to plan better and plan my life around it better, if that makes sense.
Oh my God. So many pieces of this. I'm like, oh, yes, 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 yes. I love that you brought up the masculine and feminine duality. I think that's so important. I resonate with this so deeply. It sounds like at the very beginning of your journey and to build anything, right? Like I was listening to a podcast this morning that was talking about manifestation or intentions for the new year. And they have all these lofty goals. They're like, I want to make $1 million in my business. I want to quit my 9 to 5. I want to do this. I want to do that. But until and unless you actually come up with those actionable steps, like what am I doing today? What am I getting done today? And I think what you were talking about with the time blocking and the consistency, and I'm starting this out as well with the consistency on the social media. I think at first you do feel like it's extremely in that masculine, just to build that muscle of showing up and keeping the promises that you make to yourself, right?
100%.
If you're saying, I want this big goal to happen, well, how am I showing up even when I don't want to? Am I putting my alarm on snooze at 5 a.m. when I know I want to feel good and go to the gym? It's all of these micro steps that it sounds like you have been very diligent in making. And it also sounds like you do a good job of allowing the seasons, right? Where it's like there's a certain season where you are going to be extremely diligent in order to build this until it becomes a muscle, and then reassessing and saying, okay, I love how you're saying after every festival, you do like a reset, right? You don't have to wait till New Year's. You don't have to wait till your birthday. You can constantly be doing these evals of what's important to me right now and what do I want to prioritize? And then what does that prioritization look like on a day-to-day basis? Like down to when am I doing these things in my schedule?
Yeah. And that's exactly what I do with my clients. When a new client signs on with me, we're taking a look at 3-month goals. Where do you want to be in 3 months? And then we drill that down into what does that look on a monthly goal basis? What does that look on a weekly goal? And then what are the daily things that you're doing to get yourself there essentially? And that's exactly what I do with myself too, of, that's how you can kind of, like you said, build that muscle. And I think that also speaks really true when it comes to just marketing and content in general, of getting good at one platform, then adding the next thing, getting good at that thing, then adding the next thing. And this can work for platforms, but this can also work in life too. You get good at waking up at 5 a.m., then you add in the meditating, then you get really good at the meditating, you add in the gym, then you add like you so on and so forth. I think a lot of people, like you said, have that all or nothing mentality. I have to do it all at once. And even just setting so many goals at the beginning of the year is just like a lot, because you don't know how your year is going to unfold either,
Yeah.
And that's why it's important to check in. And that's why I use festivals, because it's like, there's a good amount of time between those festivals usually.
Sometimes.
And then, but if it's one of those things where like, this upcoming month in October, I have ACL, and then I think I'm going to do Freaky Deaky one of the days, and then Seismic Dance Event. So like that gives me 2 weeks in between festivals. That's when I set really manageable expectations of like, okay, this is probably going to be a playful kind of month. So that means like I'm just going to, not be putting too much pressure on myself to like be hitting, say, for example, like the 10K months, or whatever, even though that's not a goal of mine, but like I wouldn't put that much pressure on myself to hit that goal if I know that like I'm going to have a busy month going on already.
Totally. And I think to your point earlier, the prioritization of what's important. I personally believe that the boring grown-up archetype stems from people who don't prioritize play and fun and joy in their lives. They're so focused on the job and the relationship and the this and the that, and they're not prioritizing play. And I think festivals, to loop it all the way back to that, it's like that, I think, is the thing that helps me, at least, because I'm like, that's the place where I get to lean into my inner child the most. That's the place where I get to be the most fun, free, playful version of myself, take that experience and then bring it into my real life. It's the integration of the festival experience that I think you do a really good job of embodying and showing people how to do.
Thank you.
I love that you went through the journey of doing the 9 to 5 with the side hustle, quitting the 9 to 5, side hustling full time, realizing that was like way more work, and then going back to it. And also, just, I think it's so beautiful that you're like allowing yourself to pivot and allowing yourself to be honest about what's working for me, what feels good for me, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely not easy to do that. It's a swallowing of like the ego, right? A little bit of like, I'm gonna have to go back to a 9 to 5. But like, I never viewed it that way. And I never viewed it as a failure. I just viewed it as like, all right, I'm being redirected. Obviously, was whatever I was doing in my business and my coaching business, like, isn't working, right? Like, something's not working.
Yeah.
And I think I needed to get to a place of nervous system safetyness and regulation, and getting back to a 9 to 5 did that. And I said that I would only go back if I found something that was really aligned. And it was almost like the universe had something ready to go, because right when I went looking for it, I found it, I applied to it. The interview process was seen, like, after the first interview, I was like, yeah, this job is mine. Like, I know it. Like, it just it just felt so aligned and perfect. And even to within the first week, I knew I was meant to be at that job, just because I was like, wow, I get to learn a lot more of skills and things like that, because I am in the coaching industry and it's something that's marketing related. So it allows me to kind of wear both of my hats and really grow in that. And so, yeah, it definitely was it took a lot to get to that point, but I know that it was all divine and meant to happen, to do that. And I think the end goal eventually will be for me to have my own things going again, but I think it's just going to take time. And I think I want to do it the right way, in a way that feels sustainable and long lasting, basically.
I absolutely love that. I feel like I was really, really drawn to you specifically because you're like 5 steps ahead of me in what I'm doing right now. Like, you're like future me a year from now.
Aww.
In an awesome way. I don't think there's many examples of people that are allowing themselves the grace to do what you're doing and to be, the word that comes to mind for me, it's integrated. It's balanced. It's grounded. You can have the desire and the dream. I think what's happening right now, what I'm seeing a lot of with my friends in the coaching space, in the non-coaching space, in the real world, in the not real world, I feel like people feel like they have to choose a lane. You either have to go the safe route with the secure job, but it's something that you're just not passionate about. You're doing it because you want a certain lifestyle. So you're like, I'm going to sacrifice doing something that I love every day so that I can make money, so that I can do the things that I love. But then sometimes what happens is that you're so tired doing that, you forget to do the things you love. So that's one side of it. And then the other side of it is the people that are like, I want to go all in on my passions, which is awesome and great. But many people, I feel like, don't have a really solid ground with that and aren't able to, from what I've seen, at least, many people aren't able to sustain it in a way that is healthy, right? Like, if you don't have your base needs met, you're not going to be able to prioritize fun and play, right? When you're talking about this, like, zooming out and coming back and recalibrating on like what's important to you right now, I think a really important thing to recognize is if you're not making ends meet, if you can't pay your rent, if you're struggling to pay for food, you're not going to be able to think about how to incorporate play and fun and joy into your life because you're just trying to live. And so I think that finding ways and finding what works for you too, right? Being able to have that. I just love that you're like, I don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks. Like, this is what's right for me. This is what's aligned for me in this moment. And this feels good for me. And that's what I'm going to honor. And that's what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a quality that you've always had? Or is that something that you've had to cultivate?
It could be something that's been cultivating, I would say, in terms of just like, right, we think that there's this like life path, right? Like I never really had like, oh, I'm going to be married by 25, kids by 30. Like never really had that kind of thing, that a lot of people have and like a lot of my clients even deal with. Because I've had to work through the mindset shift with so many of my clients. I'm so behind in life, and I'm like, you're really not behind in life at all. By what terms are we given here? The only timeline as women, if you are looking to have kids, that's not everyone's journey, right? But that's kind of the only timeline that might be a little bit limiting in that regard, which I totally honor and see and recognize.
And there are workarounds for that.
And there are workarounds for that. Technology and medicine is developing with all of that as well. But other than that, I've just always kind of been, like I'm just going to kind of like figure this life thing out and see where it takes me. I do think that came from, I did put a lot of pressure on myself in high school and college and all of those things to have certain things figured out. But then when I realized that I overstressed myself, like in high school, like I actually developed Bell's palsy. I don't know if you've heard of that, where it's like you can't move half of your face.
Wow.
I woke up the morning of my junior prom. Fun little story. Couldn't move half my face on the morning of my junior prom. And one of the reasons that Bell's palsy develops is stress can be one of them. And I was just so stressed out studying for finals, student council elections, blah, blah, blah. I got to college and it's like, I stressed myself out for what? Yes, I got into a great school at Arizona State. I was in the honors college, got a really solid scholarship, but it's like, could I have got into that same end result with less stress is what I asked myself,
Yeah.
So I feel like since then, and as I've gotten into my adult life, I've followed that path. You were talking about the two different paths, right? In that, it reminded me of a post that I did on my coaching page. I had a lot of instant success in my coaching business. I had the most money in my bank account, and I am more fulfilled now with less in my bank account than when I had that, And
Let's dive into that, girlfriend.
Yeah. It's one of those things where it's like I feel more fulfilled there. I know I probably don't have the same amount of money as a lot of my friends around my age that have been in the same career, growing, climbing the corporate ladder, whatever. But I'm just trusting that I'm doing my thing. I'm figuring those things out. I've hit a restart button in probably every aspect of my life in the past year. Being in your Saturn return, it'll do that. And so
we're right there, babe. We're right there.
So I feel like it's definitely something I've just cultivated in recognizing I just need to take things day by day. And I don't really have that 5-year plan. I have no clue what that's going to look like, but like I just know I can keep trusting myself and God and the universe and just kind of like allowing things to unfold and not try to be so in control of everything like I used to be.
I love this. I think something important to recognize though is it's this balance of, I'm in the same boat. I just got a new tattoo on the back of my neck, surrender. Like surrender, totally. Surrender, trust. But when I say that to people who don't get it, right? Like the girlies that get it. When I say it to people who don't get it, they associate surrender with giving up, and it's not, because it's just trusting. It's trusting that what's meant to unfold, everything's unfolding perfectly. But at the same time, that doesn't discount showing up and taking that aligned action. And that's, the whole purpose of this podcast is to inspire and empower people to evaluate, what is your dream? Everybody's dream can look different. Like to your point, it's like not everyone needs to have that same 5-year plan. I think some people that have that 5-year plan, it might not even be their 5-year plan. It's like a 5-year plan that someone told them that they should have and they never questioned it.
Totally.
And so I think for us to really get honest with ourselves and constantly be doing this reevaluation of like, what's important to me right now? What do I want? What am I desiring? What are my goals? What are my dreams? And what am I actively doing today?
Yep.
Because I think the stress comes from thinking about, what am I doing tomorrow and the day after that and the day after that. It's like, just right this moment right now. I'm recording a podcast with somebody that inspires me, and I'm excited to share that with the world and inspire people. And like, that's my action right now, right today.
Mm-hmm.
If that's all I do today, it's not all I did today. It's 7:48.
Yeah, right.
But if that was all I did today, I could go to sleep being like, wow, okay, I took action towards my dream. One of my dreams, I'm checking that off the list. Boom. It's simple and it's hard. I think this is where so many of us are constantly seeking answers, seeking more, seeking, but to your point, you had a moment in your life maybe where you had more money in your bank account, but what was the cost of that in your life?
Yeah.
I think, again, right now, whatever your priorities are, it's like the balance of, I don't want to have to work all day, every day. I want to have an income so that I can do, it's just, I don't think enough people allow themselves permission to arrive at that place. And I think that's so amazing that not only are you sharing that with your clients and sharing that with your social media platforms, but you are like fully and truly just embodying that.
Yeah. And I think it's important for anyone listening to just like kind of question the path that you set ahead for yourself. And like you said, is it yours or is it someone else's? And really be able to tune into that, because that's when you can start to shift and have awareness. If you continue to say, I hate my job, my life sucks, all of those things, and it's like, what are you doing to kind of shift those? And I also want to come back to the surrendering thing. The phrase that kept coming up is like controlling the controllables, control what you can control. And surrendering is letting everything else do the work behind the scenes based off of what you are doing, right? Controlling those controllables. Things might be shitty in your life, but if you're controlling your mindset about it, right? And knowing like, okay, but I'm taking intentional action to change the reality that I currently have, then that's a lot more supportive. And then you kind of have to allow that path to unfold for you and surrender to that. Or if you're like, I want to launch a business or I want to launch a social media thing, and you're taking those daily actions and you're like, I have no clue if anyone is listening or anyone is following, that's surrendering to the process and seeing that come to fruition. Because like, if you would have told baby Aid back when she started Vibe with Aid 7 years ago that I would have like 24.4 thousand Instagram followers, she would have been like, ha, what? Like, you're kidding. But I just was like continuing to post and show up every day and find ways to grow my pages and do those things and connect with my audience and all of that, that it was total surrender. There was so many times where I was like, I should just quit this. What am I doing? Like there's so many moments of self-doubt, but that was the surrender, is like I was still controlling what I could control and doing those intentional actions and aligned actions, right? And then surrendering for the algorithms or God, the universe, to like bring those people to my page in that way, And that's where you kind of have to just blindly trust and do those things, even if the end result is going to take a while to come into your reality and for it to happen. But then when it does, you're like, oh shit, like here we are,
I saw a stat yesterday that was talking about podcasts, and it was talking about podcasts specifically, but I think, we could apply this to everything, where they were saying that 90% of podcasts don't make it past episode 3. And then like 99% of podcasts don't make it past episode 20. And they're like, the lesson in that is just fucking keep going. Just keep showing up. Right now, I'm at the beginning stages of building my social media platform, of finding my message, of finding my audience. You're episode 17 of the podcast, and we're almost at 20. I think we're in such a time of this like instant gratification that when you're not getting that immediate applause and that immediate paycheck and that immediate following and that immediate, everyone's liking your post, like so many of us are like, well, I'm doing something wrong. I'm doing something bad. I'm just going to quit. Nobody's listening to the podcast. Why would I keep doing it? Versus the mentality of, that's like, I think it's like trust and surrender, that combination of the two, that I trust that what I'm doing, I feel the alignment. Like I feel and I know that I have a message to share. I know that I'm on the right path, and I trust and I'm surrendering to the fact that I may not see results for a year, and I'm fully okay with that. and I'm going to keep going. I used to work in entertainment. I worked for an actor for a few years, and it was like a master class in showing up.
Yeah.
He, for years and years and years and years and disappointment after disappointment, just kept fucking showing up. He had such a clear vision of where he was going and what he was building, that no rejection, not getting certain parts, things not happening. When it was quiet, like when the pandemic happened, there was no roles, there was no movies, there was no nothing. He was like, great, let's produce, let's write something. Let's just keep the momentum. Let's keep going. And I was like, wow, okay, all right. The only way you fail is if you give up.
Exactly.
Like truly,
Yeah.
like eventually you're going to succeed if you're on path and you're aligned and you're doing what you're meant to be doing, and it's not coming from an egoic place, and you're really passionate about what you're doing, and you keep showing up and you keep iterating and you keep learning and you keep growing. It's inevitable.
You also learn so much just by doing, right? And
Totally.
I wish there was maybe only 1 or 2 people that saw my first YouTube video because it was bad, right? But like I learned the more I did it, the more I edited YouTube videos, I learned more about it. Or like podcasting, same thing. And like
Yeah. You have a podcast too, yeah?
yeah, and then
Yeah.
that I think we're definitely past. I think we're at 65 episodes,
There
but
you go.
I've been on and off with that, and I've just been kind of like, like when I come back to it, I come back to it kind of thing, you know? And just trusting that too. And I think for me, I'm with content creation, like long form content creation, I'm currently in like an experiment phase of when do I create that content? I've tried the weekends, but the weekends have been so fun here in Austin. But then evening times I'm tired from my 9 to 5. So I'm currently experimenting with that.
Yeah.
Filming a TikTok and an Instagram reel is like so easy to put together. But like long form video, as you know, it's a commitment things for sure.
Yeah. And then doing both, and then doing like,
yeah.
I mean, yeah, like right now, having a 9 to 5, doing one podcast a week. Now I'm committed to doing at least a post a day and content every day. And then I'm in different courses and learning different things. And I'm like, and then I want to have fun and I want to, but again, with the seasons, it's so interesting because right now, like right this exact moment, I'm in a season of saying no to the fun because I'm really building the foundation of my empire.
Yep.
And that's been hard
Totally
for me because I want to play all the time. I want to do things. And I'm like, again, that evaluation. There were times in my life where I was like, I'm prioritizing play. That is the most important thing to me.
Yeah.
I want to have fun. I want to socialize. Right at this exact juncture in my life, my priority is laying the groundwork for my bigger goals and visions.
Totally.
So showing up in integrity with that. And I did a post on this the other day where I was like, how do I decide what to say yes and no to right now? And because it's been hard for me because I want to say yes to everything. Like,
do you know your human design?
Yeah, I am a generator.
Oh, of course. What's your authority?
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Okay.
What are the options?
Emotional, sacral.
I think I'm emotional.
Okay.
Maybe?
If you have a defined emotional solar plexus, then yes.
I'll send it to you after. I did a whole human design deep dive.
The only reason I ask is because like that's how you make decisions.
Well,
that's how you know yes or no.
Well, so I redefined this for myself because I was having a hard time because my gut instinct, and I'm very spontaneous and impulsive, and I'm like, yes, yeah. Like I keep saying my eyes are bigger than my stomach. Like I'm like, yes to everything impulsively. And then now what I'm starting to do is take a breath, take a second, not say yes immediately. Say that sounds amazing. I'll let you know.
Yep.
Sit with it for a second. And then the question that I've started to ask myself is saying yes to this thing in devotion to or in distraction from my future self, my higher goals, my higher timeline, my current priorities?
Yeah.
And a really good example of this is I have some friends that just got married in the UK. And I was on Instagram. My friend was in London. I was telling him about this ecstatic dancing. And he was like, oh, come. And I'm in New York City. It's a long weekend. And he's like, come to London like tomorrow. And I'm like, fuck yeah, let's go. I'll come to London, sure. And then I'm thinking about it. And I'm the type of person where I'm like, don't ask me twice. I'll book that flight. Yep. I'll come to London for 48 hours like a psycho. And I sat with it for a second and I was like, okay, Amanda. I was like, I had a bachelorette party the next weekend. I had a week of work and I was having a hard time with work. So I really needed to show up in integrity at work that week. I had just signed up for the content creation course and I was behind on some of the assignments on that. And I was like, I could either go to London, have a blast, get none of my work done, be exhausted next week, be burnt out for the bachelorette party, or I stay home, I work on my assignments, I'm able to show up really hard for work those few days, I'm able to be well rested and rejuvenated for the bachelorette party. That was a little grown-up Amanda moment.
Totally.
Of like, okay, like I'm not just doing what feels good now, I'm doing what is in service and truly going to fuel this version of myself that I keep saying I want. So how am I showing up for her?
Yeah, that totally, good on you for that. That's definitely hard to do. And like, I had a similar moment too. I was supposed to be going to Lost Lands this week with the brand. And I just was like, you know what? I don't really feel like going, because like I said, I traveled a lot earlier this year. And then I spent some time in Austin from July until Labor Day weekend. And I just was like, wow, that was so nice to be so rooted into my routine and my health and the priorities I set. And so coming back from ARC, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do Lost Lands. And then there's also 3 Points in Miami in October. I have a ticket for it. And I was like, that's not feeling like a yes anymore either. I think from now until Thanksgiving, I'm just going to enjoy. We have a lot going on in Austin, right? Like we have ACL, we have like Freaky Deaky, Seismic Dance Event. Like we got stuff going on, So it's like, it's not like I'm going to say no to these things and then feel super limited or like FOMO because there's going to be things going on here. I felt like that was similar to you. Normally a past version of me would be like, no, we're going to send it to all the things. We're going to do all the things. But like, I also had to be integrity with my job because even though I have unlimited PTO, like I still want to be like present for that and do a good job at that, too.
And you know what you need to do for those things. Yeah. I actually want to touch on this because I think you'll resonate with this deeply. As people that are interested, our hobbies are, we have the same hobbies, traveling, festivals, going to all the things. There's an abundance of things. Like you can never, have you ever been to Burning Man?
No, but I know of it.
So at Burning Man, there's so many lessons that you can take from it. But at Burning Man, there is so much going on at any given moment.
Yeah.
Like hundreds of options. You will miss out on 99% of the things by choosing the one thing that you're doing because you can't be everywhere at once. It's just not possible. I think that's a part of this growing up, and it's a part of the balance that we keep running back to. I love that you're able to sit with what is aligned for me right now. And it doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be, your logic can just be what your gut is telling you.
Yeah.
But it sounds to me like you're desiring to be rooted in Austin. You're desiring to have experiences there. And it's like, beautiful. Lean into that. I was supposed to go to ARC.
Yeah.
Like I had a whole plan to go to ARC and all this. And then I went to Deep Tropics in Nashville, and the people that I was supposed to go to ARC with, there were some things that shifted and changed. And I was like, you know what? That's not aligned. I really want to be in New York. My gut was like, I want to be in New York. And honestly, it was because I wanted to be alone in solitude to work.
Yeah.
I was really feeling that desire to like, I don't need to play this weekend. I want to focus on what I'm building. I want to prioritize that. I want to show up. As someone that's been doing this for a really long time, I wonder if you feel not pressure, but like some level of expectations, right? From you're the festival girl that goes to all the shows. And when you decide to prioritize your peace, when you decide to rest, when you decide to say no to things, like how does that feel for you? For me, it was a journey to get to a place where I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Like I fought myself for a while on it.
Yeah. I mean, for those that like are my OGs, they actually know that there was a time where I wasn't going to as many things, but that was influenced by a toxic ex-boyfriend. And so when I was going through that period, it actually was more like an identity crisis that I wasn't going to
Yeah.
these things as much because he was like, we're not going to as many festivals. Like, we have to get serious, like, blah, blah, blah. We have to save money, blah, blah, blah. And it just felt very restrictive. And I felt very lost and not in my power. And like almost, like I said, an identity crisis of things. So now I think like the first half of the year I did go to a lot of events and things, but I think that was to kind of be like to him, like, I'm going to go to these things because these are what light me up and like, to kind
Yeah.
of like heal through that. And it allowed me to just reconnect with my why. But I think now it's one of those things where I used to feel that pressure earlier in the sense of like I needed to be the go-to person for every festival tip,
Yeah.
right? Like I need to go to all the festivals to give everyone the tips on that. But then it came down to alignment, right? Of like that festival is not aligned for me. I probably won't go to it. Like I probably won't give tips. And recognizing that I don't need to be the go-to person for every single thing. And also kind of the shift in my brand has been about incorporating the life stuff with the festival stuff to achieve that balance.
Yeah.
And I released that identity a long time ago that I needed to be the go-to person. It's a very ego kind of thing, thinking that
Right.
I need to be the only creator for, everyone, right? Which is not true. The festival creator community has grown so much since I first started. And I can speak to certain events, and then it's also great that other people can speak to certain events and
Right.
talk about their experience. And someone might follow me for one reason, they might follow someone like my best friend Emma Capotis for another reason, right? She's a
Right.
mom, she's a raver, she's speaking to that experience a lot more too. I'm not going to be the one to be like, here's how you balance having a kid and being in the rave scene when I don't even have a kid. you know?
Yeah, yeah. You're just going to speak to your own experience and what's aligned for you and what
Exactly.
festivals line up with you as well.
Exactly. So I think I released a lot of that pressure. And then, yeah, now it's not even a thought when I'm not going to like as many. I mean, I have 3 festivals lined up for the fall. So it's like,
Yeah.
when,
All of it to say, I just, not even talking about, I mean, for us, it's festivals. For
yeah,
people, it's just like in general, I think people feel pressure to do things,
totally.
whether it's because their
Social
friends want them
media,
there, or there's FOMO, or there's all of these million reasons why. And I think one of the really big ones, a big shift that it's shown up in my life and also like in relationship is when you invite someone to something
yeah,
and someone says no, they don't owe you a reason why.
yep,
And I encourage people not to pressure someone into doing what they want them to do
yeah,
for whatever reason, because they don't want to go alone, because this, because that. It's like honoring people's no's. And I think people have a hard time. I used to have a hard time saying no because I was like, oh, well, people are going to try to pressure me and this and that. And now I've gotten to a point where I'm like, if you try to pressure me into going to something, we're going to have a problem.
yeah. No, exactly. And you bring up like the flip side to that too is like I've also recognized and taught clients that like you can't pour from an empty cup. So
No.
like I think being able to gauge what your cup looks like and feels like to you and knowing when you're overdoing it and knowing that there's like you said at Burning Man, like there's always going to be things that you miss out on in life. Like that's just
Yeah.
it. Like there's always going to be those things. But that also means that there's an abundance of those magical moments that you will get to experience even if you say no to this one thing. I tend to joke like, oh, you missed this one special back to back, but it's like you're going to see another special back to back a few months later, like a special moment. And I think that just
Yeah.
comes down to, again, knowing and trusting that like you
I
will
was just going to say
attract
that.
those aligned experiences for you. And that's how you don't get FOMO. And it's like when the festival or show that you went to ends, you don't get post festival depression or the blues about it because you just know the next thing will be coming along the way that you have planned that'll be just as great.
I always say that when we're leaving somewhere because I'm always down to go home early.
Yeah.
I have no problem. I don't do afters. I'm a dayer. I
Yeah.
like the day parties. I like to go to sleep. I never get FOMO, but I have the friends that are like, oh no, we're going to miss it. We're going to miss it. And my favorite phrase is like, there will always be another party.
Yep.
You don't have to hold on so tight to this. And this can be a metaphor for life. You don't have to hold on so tight to certain experiences, because there will always be a next. And I think the word that comes up for that is impermanence.
Mm-hmm.
Every moment is impermanent. Every experience, every, like this conversation right now, we'll never have this exact first conversation ever again.
Yep.
And that makes every moment so special. There's this phrase like, this too shall pass. And people always use that phrase when bad things are happening. They're like, oh, don't worry, like this too shall pass, this too shall pass. But I love that phrase for beautiful moments too, because it's that reminder that, yeah, this moment's amazing and beautiful, but be here and be as fucking present as you can, because this moment only exists right here, right now.
Yep. Yeah, totally. And that you can be grateful for it, grateful that it happened.
Yeah.
That's what I do with everything. I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful this happened. Like, universe, more of this, just knowing that more of these magical moments can happen again. And that you could also cultivate that in your day to day as well, to have those magical moments when you start to find, the beauty in the mundane and romanticizing the mundane and all of those little things too. I love that.
I feel like we could talk forever
Yeah,
and
totally.
ever and ever. If people want to connect with you, if people want to follow you, if they want to work with you, if you have anything upcoming that people can jump in on, any offerings or anything like that.
I appreciate that. So you can find me
Yeah.
at Vibe with Aid on everything: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, X, whatever it's called, YouTube, and then vibewithaid.com is the blog. And then findyourvibecoaching.com is all about my coaching business that I have, just helping people find more fulfillment in their daily lives. A lot of the strengths I have working one-on-one with clients, and it's open to everyone. I used to just work with women, but now it's open to everyone, women, men, non-binary, whatever. I tend to focus on a lot of mindset work, habits and routines, goal setting, doing check-ins, things like that. And then I also incorporate human design, which is like astrology, but on crack, honestly. That really just allows you to give a roadmap to your unique human design. So we find ways to implement and integrate that. So you can find all the details about coaching. Currently, I do have some one-on-one spots available for the fall. And, this is a really good time if you want to get centered on how you want to end this year and start next year. This is a really good time if you want to hop in, and if you feel called to just start making some shifts and have that accountability. Kind of similar to the statistic that you talk about with podcasts, that there's also a statistic about coaching that when you hire someone that is accountable to you on a weekly or daily consistent basis, your success rate of completing that goal goes up to like 90%, which is crazy. Which, like, if you just say that, like, hey, I want to do this thing, it's like 50% of you actually achieving it. So if you want me in your corner, I'm here to support you, here to guide you, help you find your vibe is what I call it. And then, I also do just like one-off coaching sessions. I'm about to open up those spots in my calendar for booking since I'm now here for a while. And I also do human design readings, 60-minute session if you want to dive into your unique human design. So I think that's about everything.
Amazing. And also, if you guys are trying to find links and things like that, in the show notes below, I will put all of this information written out so you don't have to remember it or write it down. Incredible. Thank you so, so much for saying yes, for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so grateful. Thank you. Thank you.